Welcome to the Mixology Talk podcast.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Julia, and we're the folks behind abarabove.com, the ultimate resource for craft bartenders, bar operators, and just about anybody else looking to make great craft drinks.
I'm a bar consultant with more than 10 years of industry experience.
And I run abarabove.com, bringing weekly articles and cocktail recipes to help you make great drinks and grow your career behind the bar. This is episode number 106, and a few weeks ago we received a fantastic question via email that warranted a whole episode's conversation. We'll keep the name confidential, but here's the question. I run a restaurant bar that's in need of another bartender. Because of circumstances, we've decided to train and transition a server manager over to the bar rather than hire an experienced bartender. First of all, is this a terrible idea? And if not, do you have any tips on training a smart, enthusiastic, and hardworking restaurant employee into a stellar craft bartender? It's daunting to do it from scratch. However, this person has many of the qualities that have actually been missing from the experienced bartenders we've hired in the past. Is there hope for our plan? What are the important things that I should be doing to make it work? I think that's a fantastic question, and today we're going to get into it. So I guess we can start with saying, yes, that sounds like a fantastic idea.
Yeah, I think that you have a great candidate on your hands, somebody that is a restaurant professional and is already in kind of a managerial role. So in order to kind of progress them through their career, it would make sense to transition them to the bar so they have a little bit more rounded restaurant experience.
Exactly. Even if they don't end up being a craft bartender, it'll be fantastic for them to know how that part of the restaurant works.
Yeah, and I've worked with a lot of managers that just don't understand the bar. They've never been behind the bar, and it's kind of this big gap in our skill set. When things get busy and you just need that extra set of hands, knowing how to move behind a busy bar is absolutely invaluable for a manager.
And even setting that aside, I think that really struck out to me about your comments was just talking about how enthusiastic and hardworking this person is. I mean, we've said it before. I think we'll probably say it 1,000 times more. You can't train attitude. Or at least it's a heck of a lot harder. It's a lot harder to train enthusiasm, to train hardworkingness. Is that a word?
It is now.
It is now. You know what I mean. It's really hard to train attitude, and you've already got an employee with a fantastic attitude. That's a cheat code right there.
It really is. So yeah, I would absolutely get this person behind the bar if that's something they were hoping to do.
Well, I think that's a good point, Chris, is that, and something that you mentioned to me before we got started, is you really want to make sure that's actually what they want to do and not just what you want them to do.
Yeah, this is something I've seen in the past. So this is kind of a word of caution if you're going to go down this route, is make sure that they actually want to do that. I know that many times servers will go back behind the bar. They're excited because, let's be honest, bartending is pretty cool. So they want to
Heck yeah, it is.
I think so anyways, but
we're a little biased.
Yeah, and I think that, they get the idea that it's going to be a lot of fun. They're going to make a ton of money. But in a lot of restaurants, being on the floor as a server, you can actually make a lot more money. You typically get in and get out of your job faster. So you can get a 6-hour shift where bartending could be 8 or 9 hours. So there's a lot of things to really consider when you're looking to train a server into the bar position.
What you don't want to do is train a great server and turn them into a crap bartender.
Right.
Because it's not what they wanted to do.
Exactly. And so some of the pushback on this could possibly be a resentment to bartending shifts because they're missing out on money. It could actually push them away from the restaurant if you insist them, once they're trained, to actually have bartending shifts. So you just really want to weigh that and really kind of vet that with the person and say, hey, this is what it looks like. This is what you can expect to make. Like, be transparent because you don't want to lose this person. It sounds like they're a fantastic asset to your team.
It sounds like they're a huge asset for your culture.
Right. Absolutely.
So in terms of actually getting started on the training side of things, let's just start from scratch. I mean, really, the first thing that most people think of when they think of training bartending is the physical skills.
Yeah. And this is something that I think a lot of bar programs do a really good job on. And I think it's one of those things where physical skills as a new bartender are so important. And I think it can be overlooked in some places, but really concentrate on the basics and get them comfortable behind the bar doing things like free pouring. So one of the exercises you can do is before they ever make a drink, make sure that they can consistently pour half an ounce, 3/4 of an ounce, 1 ounce.
Is this important even if you're a bar that does jiggering?
It is.
It's probably just a good skill to have.
Being comfortable with bar equipment in general is very, very important. I know that I've done interviews with people in the past that have stepped behind the bar, not had experience with jiggers or, bar equipment, and it's immediately apparent. And then it becomes kind of a question of
competence,
and I'm going to put you in front of my guests, and it's very obvious
bad
that you don't know what you're doing.
But that's a really good point, though. How do you recommend that this waiter gets that experience without making the place look bad or slowing everybody down or making themselves frustrated?
Yeah, and I think it's just getting these basic skills down, being comfortable with your tools, doing it over and over and over again until you can do it on demand, until you can do it literally with your eyes closed.
Someday I'm going to have you make me a cocktail with your eyes closed.
Oh, hey, I like this challenge. That's great. But if people in the restaurant business, there's a lot of downtime, especially in the beginning. That 4 to 6 o'clock hour could be a little bit slow. So this could be part of that side work almost of like, all right, come in, get your station set up. Now you have about an hour and a half of kind of 50% workload. All right, go to the service well and just start practicing over and over and over until you get your first customer or whatever. And this would be a really good use of time and get them comfortable behind the bar.
So when you've seen waiters make this transition in the past, do you recommend they do like a blended shift where like the first 2 hours, come in 2 hours early, spend that time practicing behind the bar and then go back to being a waiter for the rest of your normal shift? Or do you recommend people just train on their own time? How do you manage that transition time? Because obviously they can't go without income.
Right. And I think you could do it any way you want, depending on the venue. What I've seen done is kind of like what I just described. During slow times, you get them behind the bar. So that way they're still making money.
So most of the day you're actually still a waiter, but during those slow times you hop behind the bar.
Right, exactly.
I see.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, most of it is just being comfortable behind a bar and developing your physical skills. So free pouring is one example, or a shaking cocktail. You don't have to use alcohol. You could just use water. And this is also a good way to practice your pouring. Do me a favor, pour me 2 ounces 3 times. All of a sudden you have a jigger or a Boston shaker full of water, add ice. Do me a favor, go ahead and shake that. Crack the seal open, that kind of stuff. Because cracking a seal on a Boston shaker definitely takes some practice. And when you see somebody crack it open on the side of the bar, once again, it's like, I'm trusting you to make my cocktail.
I thought that was how all the cool kids did it.
It is now, I guess. But yeah, it's just like these little things start to add up. But once they get these skill sets down, it really inspires confidence, not only with the customer, but with themselves too. And you can see movement and experience.
And like anything, your first day is going to be rough. I think not just a manager to be patient with them, but also, let them be patient with themselves. The rest of the bar staff will certainly know that they're brand new as well, but just give it some time. You've already said that they're enthusiastic and hardworking, so this probably won't be an issue, but the physical skills come with practice. And so you're just going to have to find a way to work that practice into the schedule. Right.
So just kind of a high level overview of some of the bartending physical skills that I would have them work on before they get step behind the bar would be free pouring consistently and on demand. Develop your counts solidly and test them on it. Shaking a cocktail in a Boston shaker and how to crack the seal. Stirring a cocktail is hugely important. I can't tell you how many times I've seen bartenders stir a cocktail with the bowl up in the air because there's less resistance and it's easier, but proper technique is really critical, or you should do it right.
And you'll never learn the right way if you're using the spoon upside down as a crutch.
Exactly. You're just going to continue to develop that habit. And 3 years later, you still won't know how to stir a cocktail. When to use a julep strainer as widener and when to use a Hawthorne strainer. Julep strainers, the way I use them, are always with spirit-driven cocktails. Hawthorne strainers, anything that's shaken. For example, how to hold a bottle properly when free pouring. This is kind of a subtle thing, but a lot of the times I've seen bartenders grab the bottle by the neck. You really want to have your finger over the pour spout because we all know that not all bottles are created equally. So if you just tip over a bottle and the neck is wider, that pour spout could just fall right out into your Boston shaker, right into your jigger, and just create a big mess. So having control over that pour spout's.
I did not know that. Sounds like a huge mess if you miss that.
And once again, when I was interviewing people, that was always one of the things that I looked at is how you grab a bottle, because that'll show a lot of experience. The other thing to keep in mind is they have those little tiny air holes in the pour spouts themselves. You don't want to cover those up for obvious reasons, because the flow will become smaller and you won't get a full pour.
And your counts will be off, right?
Completely off. Yeah, you won't be able to rely on your counts. The last thing I can think of off the top of my head is changing out kegs. So this could be something to do while they're on the floor, working table sections. Any opportunity for them to change a keg under kind of peak conditions would be super helpful. I know some places this is a barback responsibility, but we all know that sometimes a barback calls in sick and bartenders are going to have to do that, or managers. This should be part of their...
You got to know how to do it.
Exactly. So these are all the things that I would kind of concentrate a new bartender learning before they ever start to work with recipes.
So speaking of recipes, that's what people immediately think of when they think of bartending skills. At least that's what I think of is recipes. How do you recommend that folks get started with learning all the rest? It's kind of daunting, right? There's hundreds of them.
Yeah, and there's a couple different ways to do it. I always like to build confidence with new bartenders, and I would have them practice on simple 2-part cocktails. You know, if you get an order with a gin and tonic or a rum and coke or vodka cranberry, any of those, have them start to fill those orders, pour beers, pour wine, shots, you know, something that's just super easy and once again can build confidence. And once they have that down and they know what they're doing, then I would have them really focus on the house cocktails. This could be something where you pull your POS data, you know, do a product mix report and take a look at your top selling cocktails. And that could be your training program. All right, here are my top 10 cocktails. I'm going to have them execute every single one of these in order. I'm going to focus on my number one selling cocktail. I'm going to have them train. They're going to know this recipe back of their hand and all the techniques that they need in order to do that. And then number 2 and then number 3, all the way down through 10. And once they know how to do each one of these, that could be all right, you're clear to work a shift now. A slow shift, but you can work a shift.
That's progress.
Yeah. And then, you know, you can start to backfill some, use that in recipes. But once they have those house cocktails down, they should be able to use that information in order to look up a recipe and build that cocktail.
Well, speaking of looking up recipes, I mean, this is probably more of a training program in general question. I imagine that you recommend most bars having a standard binder of cocktail recipes. So if you're in the middle of a shift and somebody orders something and you just blank, you got somewhere to go, right?
Yeah, and there's a couple ways you could do that. Some POSs will actually have a menu, a recipe lookup. So that could be something, takes a lot of time to build those out, but it could be something that you implement in your POS. So you can talk to your POS company about if that's an option for you or not. Rolodexes are in a super easy way, especially if you have regulars that are very particular. You can add their cocktail into the Rolodex. They can look it up. And then obviously managers, you can have your phones on you. That could be another way. Just ask your manager, hey, I don't know how to make a penicillin. Do me a favor. Can you look up the recipe? And if we have the ingredients, I can make it. Obviously, a lot of places don't like bartenders on their phones. They make it something you're probably going to have to...
You're going to have a policy around. What do you do if somebody orders something somewhat obscure that you don't know off your top of your head? It must happen all the time.
And the last scenario is if you're out of options, you could just ask the customer, how do you like that made? I make it. You don't even have to say I make it this way. Like,
medium rare?
Yeah, exactly. I'll take my my Vieux Carré medium rare, please. But you can ask them, just like, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm drawing a blank on the recipe. Would you mind either looking it up or tell me how you make it? And I'm happy to make it for you. I think just owning it instead of making something up, like I have a pina colada. Why is it pink? Stuff like that, you know.
Why is there steak in my Vieux Carré?
Right, exactly. And it's overcooked. But, you know, just being open will help to build a lot of relationships with a bar, you know, the customers and a bartender, because it shows that you want to give them a really quality product. And at the end of the day, you're going to be charging them for it either way. So might as well make it the way they want it.
No, I think that's a really good point. And at the end of the day, training is training. And you've just got a head start because that person already knows how your restaurant works. They already know a lot of your policies. It's just a matter of getting those skills up and running. And it's a great opportunity for them because it's really hard to start at a new bar as a brand new bartender. That's the hardest scenario. They've already got a leg up. And I think, once again, as long as they know what they're in for and they're excited about it, it's really a win-win.
Yeah. So to kind of backtrack a little bit on where we started with this podcast topic, I will say that I did a couple of years of consulting just recently, and this is a common problem we're seeing across the entire country. So many bars are opening up with non-qualified bartenders.
There just aren't enough bartenders.
There really isn't.
When there's more bars than there used to be. I mean, it's a math problem.
Right, exactly. So, and not a lot of people are kind of filling those ranks. So a lot of operators have had to become very creative on where they get bartenders from and, you know, the training programs that they implement. So as kind of build on this topic, once you get your training program down, document it. Really get a process down for how you're going to train a brand new bartender to come into your bar, because you don't want to have to reinvent the wheel every single time. So once you got it down, just keep rinse, repeat. rinse, repeat.
Well, and to your point also, if there aren't enough good bartenders out there, I really think that looking for attitude, looking for good work ethic and that sort of thing, it might just be the top of your list when hiring. Maybe you do hire somebody without any bartending experience as long as they've got the right attitude and perhaps some hospitality experience. I guess what I'm suggesting is experience may not be the be all end all, especially if you've got an established cross-training program.
It's true. And a lot of the time I've seen bartenders who are very skilled come in, but they have their own kind of baggage. I know we talked about the spoon, upside down spoon when you're serving cocktails, stuff like that are just so ingrained that having a fresh set of eyes in your establishment and being able to train them the way you do things is actually super valuable. And it creates opportunity for people to kind of advance through their careers. It's not a bad idea at all. And I highly recommend it because you can train technique, you can train policies, you can train all these things. But to Julia's point, having somebody that has the right attitude is so valuable. So a couple other tips for cross-training in this manner. Cross-train more employees. If it's just the one that you're looking for, maybe do 2 or 3 at the same time so they can learn together, build a little bit of a relationship, and it gives you a lot more flexibility when it comes to doing a schedule, filling in gaps when people call in sick, if somebody goes on vacation. It just really allows you to be a more holistic team.
I can only imagine that a waiter with bartending experience will be more sympathetic when the bar's 3 deep and he needs to add something to the list.
Right. And, if they've gone through this training program and a keg blows, they're going to know how to change it. Even if they're serving or, they're going to know all of the things that a bartender should know. Where is the extra cranberry juice located? All these things that when you're in the weeds, you're 3 deep, you haven't seen a bar back or a manager in an hour, you could ask the server and they could be another support system for you. Super valuable.
Well, and I think your point about filling in when somebody calls in sick is a really, really great point. I mean, if the more flexible your existing staff is, that's just going to let you be more flexible with the schedule if things get crazy.
Yeah. So last couple tips here, especially with this type of employee that is super excited about progressing through the industry, reward their enthusiasm, really fuel their desire to learn more about the industry. There's a couple ways you can definitely do that. Consider paying for their USBG membership. I don't know how it is in the rest of the country, but in San Francisco, USBG is a network of really professional and driven bartenders. And so surrounding them with those people and those mindset is super, super valuable. And it really kind of drives that hunger and that thirst to be really good at your job.
And it gives them access to a lot of free training programs as well, which just benefits you as well.
Absolutely. Another thing you can do is to set up a library at your work for hospitality management and cocktail books. Consider just having a bunch of books on hand. People can check it out and really kind of drive that desire to learn more. And it helps reinforce their professional growth. And as a side note, I know it's a little bit self-promotional, but if you have bartenders that you really want to progress to the next level of, I want to be a cocktail designer, I want to be in charge of a menu, we developed a course, 3 years now, about cocktail design, the theory behind it, how ingredients work together. And this will help to accelerate their growth professionally and give them the information they need to really have a strong grasp of menu design and cocktail design.
Absolutely. It's called the Mixology certification. You can find it at mixologytalk.com/certification. And just like Chris said, the whole point of this program is to teach cocktail design. You will not learn how to shake a cocktail in this program. You're not going to learn how to stir a cocktail in this program, but you are going to learn how to balance out vermouth, bitters, all of the various different components of a cocktail. You're going to learn how to make a cocktail absolutely from scratch, how to design a seasonal menu that reflects seasonality and what's in season at that time, all these sorts of things. So if you've got somebody on your staff who's looking to kind of start putting their stuff on the menu and you really want to find a way to encourage them, then consider it.
Yeah, absolutely. So this could open a whole nother podcast really about what to look for in candidates. This is some of the consulting that I've done in the past, but find ways to kind of figure out their personalities, what excites them, what drives them, and see how you can implement that in your hiring program because it can be so powerful. And you really make a difference in a lot of people's training programs and, culture and stuff.
Absolutely. And I think just to wrap it up, I would say you're in a really, really good position by having somebody on your staff who has that great attitude, who has that great work ethic. Not only are they going to continue to positively impact your culture, but now they can positively impact your bar.
Exactly. Absolutely. So thanks again for sending in such a great question.
That was such a great question. I hope that anybody out there who has their own questions about the bar and bartending and their own staff, feel free to send them over to cheers@mixologytalk.com. If you have someone on your staff who's truly engaged and motivated, you are really in a great position. And I hope this podcast has given you some food for thought on how to cross-train them into different roles behind your bar. Once again, check out the show notes at mixologytalk.com/106. And thanks for joining us once again. Cheers.
Never miss an episode by subscribing in iTunes or YouTube. And as always, check out the show notes by clicking on the right.